Two standard daily trainers, two very popular models, two very different approaches. Which should you buy? The ASICS Novablast 5 or the New Balance Fresh Foam X 1080V 14? Let's break it down. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod. You're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Now today we're going to be talking about the Novablast 5 versus the 1080V 14 and breaking down the differences between the two shoes, what the sensations generally feel like, so that you can decide which one is best for you. Now if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps in the description below. Feel free to jump around, click on whatever part of the review or comparison that you want to see, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos to make them as good as possible for each and every one of you. Now today we're going to be talking about two of the more popular standard daily trainers out on the market today, and two shoes that frankly take a slightly different approach to the standard daily trainer category. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes of this video though, I do want to give some disclaimers and disclosures, which are that I was given both of these shoes for free for the purpose of review. The Novablast 5 I first received through my local running store, Utah Run, in association with ASICS, and then the New Balance 1080V 14 was sent to me directly from New Balance. Now I was not paid to include these shoes in any videos. I was not given talking points, asked specific content requirements. I wasn't paid at all by either brand, and no one gets to watch these videos beforehand, so all thoughts are entirely my own. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of a standard daily trainer and what that means. So a standard daily trainer is really just kind of a do-it-all shoe, not in the sense that it's going to be great at everything, more so that it's a shoe that can handle a little bit of everything at least pretty well. The bulk miles for a standard daily trainer are going to be kind of your standard, just steady runs, which are going to be, you know, anywhere from kind of your recovery runs all the way up to kind of your easy and again, kind of just generally steady paces. But standard daily trainers oftentimes are the shoe that you can have if you just want one shoe, you're a newer runner, you don't need a full shoe rotation, and so they'll be able to go a little bit long. They'll be able to go a little bit fast, typically. And so as such, that's how we're going to be talking about these shoes and breaking down the comparison. Now, starting out from a price perspective, these two shoes have pretty drastically different price points. The Novablast 5 comes in at $140. Meanwhile, the 1080 comes in at $165. Now, $165, $160 is not necessarily super expensive for a daily trainer, but it is seemingly more so the price point of like a max cushion shoe. And the 1080 could technically be considered a max cushion shoe if it weren't for the fact that New Balance also has the Fresh Foam X More, which is kind of their then max cushion approach. So with the way that stack heights work, frankly, in shoes nowadays, almost any shoe can be considered like a max cushion shoe. So just with how New Balance categorizes their lineup, I still consider this more of a standard daily trainer. Meanwhile, over on the ASICS side, you have the Gel Nimbus as kind of your max cushion option. You have the Gel Cumulus as another kind of standard daily training option, where the Novablast could maybe be considered an up-tempo trainer, but just with the application and usage within that line, I feel like it fits more of the standard daily model. But again, full transparency, their price points do kind of align to those other subcategories. A lightweight daily trainer or lightweight up-tempo trainer oftentimes is in the 140 to 150 range, and the max cushion options are oftentimes in the 160 or so range. Now from a specs perspective, the 1080 comes in at 9.9 ounces and 260 grams. Meanwhile, the Novablast 5 comes in at 9.0 ounces and 255 grams. So overall, the weights are not that different. And I don't really notice like a significant difference in the two shoes when running in them as far as the weight of the shoe. Sensation underfoot, which we'll talk about, does vary quite a bit. Now the stack heights is going to be kind of how I point out some of the kind of the naming confusion or category confusion here. So with the 1080, it comes in at 39 millimeters in the heel, 33 in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter heel to toe drop. Meanwhile, the Novablast 5 comes in at 41.5 in the heel, 33.5 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. So technically speaking, based off of at least how the brands are measuring these heights, the Novablast is actually more cushion. It is a higher cushion shoe, yet most people wouldn't consider the Novablast a max cushion shoe. So again, this is why I kind of keep both of these in that standard daily range, despite maybe the stack height itself feeling or looking like max cushion, because I'm looking more at how it compares with the rest of the lineups for these brands. From a fit perspective, I actually think these shoes fit fairly similar overall. They both have a more accommodating fit. These are wide foot friendly for the most part. I do feel like the Novablast 5 is maybe a little bit sleeker, especially in the fourth or in the midfoot area. It's maybe a little bit more streamlined, but both of these are accommodating but not sloppy. And then the other thing is that lengthwise, they both fit true to size. So I would go with your standard, regular, everyday running shoe sizing there. So I wear a 10.5 in both shoes, very happy with the 10.5 in both shoes. Now moving to the uppers, you have an engineered mesh on the 1080, and then you have a jacquard mesh on the Novablast 5. Both of them have pretty good cushioning in that heel cup and are known to be a little bit warm. I find that the 1080 is probably a little bit warmer overall of a shoe, and in the summer the shoe can get really, really hot. The Novablast 5 is a little bit of an upgrade in terms of breathability over the Novablast 4 and past models, which were a little bit less breathable upper, and there is still, again, that extra cushion in the uppers for both of these shoes can cause them to heat up a little bit. So uppers, similar overall experience actually, and both actually have fully gusseted tongues, which is really, really nice. The Novablast has less cushioning in the tongue overall though, so from a overall cushion, overall plushness, the 1080 has a little bit more of that plush element in the upper, while the Novablast is a little bit sleeker of an experience. So that, you know, we're going to talk about the midsoles and how they feel underfoot here in a second, but that's kind of the theme you're probably seeing is it's a standard daily with elements of a lightweight trainer, and this is a standard daily with elements of a max cushion shoe. That's very much how they're going to perform and how you should really be thinking of these two shoes in my mind. So underfoot, the 1080 has a Fresh Foam X foam midsole, which is what New Balance calls a bio EVA foam. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but it's an EVA blended foam. Meanwhile, over in the Novablast, we have FF Blast Max, which is also actually an EVA-based foam, from what I understand, with an OBC or OB compound in the midsole as well. And so both of these are EVA-based. Now, as far as sensation underfoot, the New Balance 1080 is like probably the squishiest or one of the squishiest foams on the market. The FF Blast Max is slightly firmer, but with some decent squish. I heard some people are calling this shoe mushy. I completely disagree with that. I actually think, especially when you're running in the shoe, the foam firms up. So, you know, instead of compressing underfoot and like just really, really squishing and absorbing it, I feel like it rebounds. And as such, the Novablast 5 has a lot more pace versatility. If I wanted a shoe that I felt more comfortable taking on like some speed workouts, especially in that tempo threshold zone, or even honestly, even some intervals, I think the Novablast 5 handles that a lot better. Meanwhile, the squish of the 1080 is going to be a little bit more of an easy day, recovery day, standard mile shoe, long run shoe as well. So this is going to be, if you really like a soft, squishy underfoot feel, and this is going to be if you like a bouncier, more responsive, more energy return type feel underfoot. The Novablast 5 is going to be way more pace versatile to me, but I do think if I was just going on a long run and I wasn't expected to do any like high pace on that, then the 1080 might be the more comfortable shoe for that workout or for that run. Now, from a stability standpoint, I found that the 1080 was a little bit unstable. I mean, it's got a wide base, so it's not as bad as I think the previous 13, but there's so much squish in this foam that if you are someone who has weak ankles, someone who overpronates, your feet may end up and your lower limbs may end up working quite a bit with this shoe. I don't feel like that's quite the case with the Novablast 5. But it still is, you know, neither of these are stability shoes. So neither of these are going to give you the support that you necessarily need if you need a, you know, guardrail system or a kind of medial post or something like that in the foam in the midsole and outsole. Now moving to the outsoles, the 1080 has a durable rubber, and then the Novablast 5 has what's called a low rubber or a high abrasion rubber. So I find that the rubber on the Novablast 5 is a little bit softer. I have had no issues with the Novablast 5 with slippage. I found that the traction was adequate. It's not like the best traction in the world, but I have not had any issues whatsoever. And typically, you know, if I'm running outside, and I have run in some rain, different things in the Novablast 5, as well as on my treadmill, which my treadmill, if grip isn't good, it tends to slip really bad on my treadmill, especially when I do like any incline. I didn't notice any issues with the Novablast 5, but I've had multiple people in my comments telling me that not only have they had issues, but a lot of other reviewers have had issues with the traction. So I'm not saying this from my perspective. I did not have issues with the traction, but I do want to add maybe an asterisk here or a note that like some people have. So just be aware of that with the Novablast 5. If you live somewhere that's going to have a lot of snow this winter or gets a lot of rain, you may not want the Novablast 5. It may slip. Now, the 1080 has a much more, I think it's like a firmer, and they call it, like, again, a durable rubber. It's a lot more rigid of a rubber, and it actually gives some more structure to the shoe itself. Because that foam is so squishy, you kind of need a firmer rubber underfoot to give more structure, right? I found that this rubber, it's very thick, so there's not too much concern, but it doesn't seem to be actually the most durable, and it's kind of eating away quicker than I would have expected for the, high abrasion that it is. So because it's so thick, again, I don't think you're going to burn through it super fast, but that may cause some long-term durability issues depending on how many miles you're trying to put on your shoes. So potential negatives to both on the outsoles, but frankly for me, I found like they both got the job done. I was not concerned. There weren't like big notes on either outsole from me. So just something to consider. Now, as far as which shoe would I choose or which shoe do I prefer, if I could only have one, I would probably lean towards the Novablast 5. This was my 2024 Daily Trainer of the Year. Just because I like a lighter shoe, I like a more responsive shoe, even for daily miles. But I really enjoyed the Novablast for, those recovery run days, and those days where I was, maybe going for normal miles, but I didn't want to push the pace. That's where this shoe, like, it doesn't. With the Novablast 5, the sensation underfoot, sometimes it causes you to speed up. It wants you to pick up the pace when you don't necessarily want to. So if you want something that's going to be just a little bit more chill, a little bit more relaxing, you like a very squishy foam, 1080 is probably your move. If you want something a little bit more pace versatile, something a little bit more responsive, something that's not going to squish quite as much under your foot, then Novablast 5 might be for you. But both shoes are very, very popular for a reason. People really, really like both of these, and frankly, they both have their place and could be used in tandem depending on how big your shoe rotation is, right? If you are someone who has a separate shoe for easy recovery days versus standard daily miles, then both of these could be options for you, especially as they're both fairly accommodating in fit. So just final thoughts on the shoes. ASICS and New Balance both came out with some really awesome shoes in 2024, and I've seen what's coming from both brands in 2025, and I'm very excited. These shoes, both of these obviously won't be updating for nearly 12 months, and so these are the two iterations that we have for the foreseeable future, basically until next like November, December. So past models are on sale right now for a really, really good price. So especially if you're new to running, you're looking for a good shoe, rather than trying to find a budget shoe, go buy one of these. But last year's model, you're going to find it at a really, really good discount, sometimes close to or maybe even under $100 depending on sizing availability. So go check these out, go see what you can snag. Now, if you're still here, I sure appreciate you sticking around. Let me know in the comments below what other aspects of these shoes that I could be comparing, what other questions that you have about the two or any of these shoe comparisons. What two shoes should I compare? What do you guys want to see a video on? And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you get notified when I drop a new video, which is typically every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And as always, I'll leave you guys with a question, which is your preferred daily trainer? Do you like the 1080, the Novablast, or something else? Let me know down below. Thanks, everybody.